The Broken Blueprint Part 3, Events in 1931. Church Vote Statement on Degrees. Megan continued to urge additional accreditation by our colleges. Neff, fully in favor of accreditation, describes the momentous action that was voted at the 1931 Autumn Council. The church took a giant step forward in Christian education when it voted to accredit the liberal arts colleges. Yet it was a slow and gradual process. From the Autumn Council of 1931, Dr. Percy sent a telegram recounting how he had talked on the floor for an hour and a half in favor of accrediting, and the council had voted to accredit 5 senior colleges. When some of the institutions found it difficult to achieve senior college rating, their administrators felt embarrassed because the junior college accrediting seemed to emphasize their weakness. Merlin Neff forgot an CME. The rivalry between the schools only added to the problem. Instead of being content with not being accredited or only having a 2-year accreditation, each of the colleges wanted to show that it was as capable as the other ones. Their thinking was changing. College administrators and faculty were beginning to imagine that their position was weakness, because they did not fully ape to the standards of the world. At the 1931 Autumn Council, our leaders also voted this recommendation to our schools. We recommend that, for the sake of maintaining Christian ideals, our college faculties should discourage the use of the title doctor, for this practice has a tendency in the students' minds to create a kind of educational aristocracy. It would seem that the Lord's admonition against the use of titles of preferment, Matthew 23 verses 9 to 10, would apply here. It is true we have employed the term doctor as applied to our physicians for many years. Why should we not employ it to designate those who have a doctor's degree in literary qualification? In our schools, as nowhere else, the employment of the term has a strong educating influence in placing before our youth worldly standards. It makes a distinction between men. It destroys the parity of the teaching brotherhood. Emphasis on worldly standards and academic distinction tends to professionalize our schools and dampen the spirit of evangelism. 1931 Autumn Council Recommendation, quoted in F. M. Wilcox's editorial review, October 24, 1935. Warning of being blacklisted. In a letter to C. W. Irwin, who the previous year had been elected Secretary of the Educational Department of the General Conference, Megan emphasized the urgency of getting our colleges accredited. He quoted from the Journal of the AMA, in which CME was close to being blacklisted for accepting 2/3, or 77 of 116, of its students from unaccredited colleges. Megan warned that the next step would be a lower rating for CME, to be followed by eventual loss of accreditation entirely and rejection of its graduates from taking state board examinations. Megan concluded with these words: "Get ready, get ready, get ready." Megan to C. W. Irwin, September 23, 1931. As you might expect, Percy was in attendance at the following month's Autumn Council. Votes to let colleges obtain accreditation. By this time, our teachers were demanding that all our colleges become accredited and that they be sent off at denominational expense for advanced degrees. College administrators were generally in agreement. The pressure upon the General Conference to make a favorable decision was intense. After long debate over the matter, the 1931 Autumn Council reluctantly voted to grant approval for all colleges to seek accreditation. It also voted that each college could select a few teachers to be sent off for advanced degrees. But this decision opened Pandora's box. Immediately, on their own, our young people began attending outside universities in greater numbers. By 1935, more than 40 were enrolled. Accreditation agencies planning to forbid inbreeding. By the late 1920s, the accrediting associations had adopted a policy to discourage what they called inbreeding. This was indeed a sinister development. In order to better understand what is involved here, according to the blueprint, a few highly trained teachers would instruct the students in our medical school. These students, upon graduating, would go into mission service. In later years, some would return and become teachers at the school. In other words, the original plan was that we would be training our own future teachers. But the accrediting agencies wanted the approved colleges to forbid such a practice. Writing in 1931, 1 month after the 1931 Autumn Council decision, Percy Magan wrote this: "The Association of American Medical Colleges has made a report on our school, criticizing us very bitterly for having our teaching to such a large degree by our own graduates. These men feel that we have, as it were, intermarried amongst ourselves, incest, teaching wise till we are almost idiots, and they make no bones about telling us so." That is one reason we wanted to get outside of our own crew and get Dr. Hadley and Dr. Clarence Olson. This matter, Brother Shaw, is more serious and is more serious at present than it was a year ago. Megan, letter dated November 20, 1931. To put it bluntly, the AMA wanted more non-Adventists on the staff. Like all the others, this demand was ultimately obeyed. For many decades now, a large admixture of non-Adventist faculty and staff at Loma Linda are not of our faith. A year earlier, in 1930, the charge of inbreeding was already leveled at CME. In the spring of 1930, scathing criticism of the medical school was administered by Dr. Fred Zapf, executive officer of the Association of American Medical Colleges. He was disappointed to find that little progress had been made since his previous inspection 6 years before. He reported that CME had an overcrowded curriculum, a footlooseness in supervision of clinical procedure, too much mere classwork, dangerous inbreeding of the faculty, and the need for better organization. Fred Zapf to Megan, July 12, 1930. The report caused Dr. Megan to say, "In all my experience with the school, I have never had such a scoring from an executive secretary as we have received from him." Megan to M.E. Kern, August 3, 1930. Nef. For God and CME, page 271.